In this video, we would learn how to make this beautiful sugar rainbow. Welcome back to my channel, guys. In this video, we'll be learning how to make a beautiful sugar rainbow just as you have seen. Now, when making a rainbow, you can make use of any color palettes combination that you desire or you choose. I have seen rainbows in different colors, so feel free to choose any that you like or that would suit the design of your cakes. You're going to start off with rolling your fondant into balls and then tinting them into the colors that you're going to use, and then you roll into a sausage. I also used a smoother here to achieve an even amount of thickness with my sausage as I roll out. So you don't want one side looking thick and the other side looking thin. Okay, so you want to use a smoother to achieve an even level of thickness for your sausage before you curve into a bowl. You can use something like a cup or something that has a round base to form your bowl, but I usually like to do mine free. I don't like to use a former so that I can determine the shape that I want. That's why I do mine free. So we're just going to keep rolling until we get to the desired level of thickness that we want. So in this case, I'm not done yet. That's why I'm still rolling to get the desired level of thickness that I want. When you are done with that, then you can curve it into your bowl and allow it to dry. To the side, I have my sugar glue already there waiting for me that I'm going to use. So your sugar glue is just your water and your CMC. I usually don't have a particular measurement that I use, so I just get a little amount of water and sprinkle some CMC on it, and I'm good to go with my sugar glue. So you're going to use the sugar glue and a fine brush to apply the glue carefully to your fondant that the bowl you've already made. That's what you're going to do. So at this point, you keep rolling. I saw that there was a crack on my bowl as I was rolling it, so I had to squash it and start all over again. Why? Because if I am to just go ahead with it like that, it would most likely break at that point where I saw the crack. So it's just better for me to start all over again and ensure that I get it right. So we are working on the second color, which is lilac, and I am rolling just like I did the first time, and just as I'll do throughout the entire process of making the rainbows and curving them into bowls. So keep rolling, don't get tired. You roll into your desired level of thickness that you want. It wasn't long enough, so I'm still going to roll, also bearing in mind that I want a certain level of thickness and I want to try and get it as uniform as possible. So I'm good with that. I am then going to apply my sugar glue and stick the lilac to the pink color. So we're going to roll with the next color. I was getting a bit confused there as to which color would come next, so I just decided to put them in the way that they're supposed to be, color by color, so that I just pick the next color and go right ahead to do what I wanted. I didn't want to mix up the colors, so you can do that to help you out, or you have a mental picture of what it is. Now that is my sugar glue, the mix of water and CMC, which I'm applying to the side of the pink, right on top carefully. If you apply it too much, it's going to stain your fondant on top and below, it's going to just stick to your table or wherever you're drying it on, and you don't want that because it's going to mess up the back of the fondant. So you have to apply it very carefully and in little amounts. I'm rolling the next color, which is blue, and I'm kneading first. Okay, you have to knead. It's better you put them in a bag if you're working in a cool environment. Put them in a bag so that they don't dry out. So I'm rolling as I did the first and second time. I squashed it and started all over again because my table wasn't greasy enough for me to work with. So I have shortening to the side as well, which I apply on my work table. That would enable me easily roll into a sausage and do the gliding or the forming or whatever I have to do. So I'm rolling out the blue, my light blue or sky blue. Roll it out first to my hand, and then I will go ahead to use my smoother again. So I'll roll, apply some shortening if you still desire to have some more so that it's easy for you to work with, and then roll out. It's a long process, but definitely worth it in the end, and you want to put care into whatever you're doing so that you come out with a beautiful result, you come out with a beautiful rainbow. So I'm rolling right there. I think I'm almost there with the amount of thickness that I want, and then I'm going to place my rainbow on my board. I don't want to do it when it's too big already for me to move. I'm going to pick it up. You have to know that the moment you start forming your rainbow, it starts drying. All right, not that it will dry rock solid or dry so hard, but it starts drying out. So you want to do the placement on the surface you're going to dry it on early enough. I've applied my sugar glue and I'm going to place my blue on it. I found that it wasn't as thick as thick as I wanted, so I had to do some adjustments. Like, it was thicker than I wanted, so I had to do some adjustments before placing it right over the lilac. Next up is my green, and I love that pop of green. Okay, so I'm going to roll into a ball, roll into a sausage, roll on my table with my hands, and then use my smoother. Please ensure that your hands are properly washed and clean before you start this process, and completely dry. If not, it's going to mess up the fondant. It's going to be so sticky and it will have patches of water and it will make it difficult for you to work with it. So please ensure that you wash and properly dry your hands. You can wait some minutes if it's not totally dry just before you start. So I'm going to roll still to the desired amount of thickness that I want. So just as always, you're going to apply your sugar glue, and do not forget, it's just in a little quantity because you don't want it staining your fondant and you don't want it staining the board or making your rainbow stick to the board as well. It will be a struggle to lift it up. When I make my rainbows, I usually dry them front and back, and what I mean is this: after leaving it to dry the way it is for like a day or some hours, I then turn it over so that the back can dry as well. And this was done on short notice, so I really had to do all that I can to make it dry as fast as possible. Now I'm going to put my green. Still not there for me, so I'm just going to roll out that edge and then curve into a bowl. Feel free to adjust if you need to make adjustments, and you also need to put into consideration the size of your cake. So I have a pan right in front of me that I'm looking at. I have a 6-inch pan because that's the size of the cake I'm working with. I have it right in front of me so that I can have a visual or mental feel of what size of rainbow I need to make. So I'm applying the sugar glue right before I go into the yellow, which is the next color. You can see that I'm doing that just at the middle of the bowl, so I'm not putting my hand to the top and I'm not putting my hand to the base, and I'm using a brush that has a small tip so that it doesn't take so much of the sugar glue. If you're using a brush that takes so much of sugar glue, it's going to drop on your fondant. It's going to drop on the board, I beg your pardon, and it's going to cause your rainbow to stick. So get a brush that has a small tip that you can use. Next up is our yellow color. Roll out into a sausage. After kneading it, roll into a sausage until you get the desired level of thickness, and then you can proceed to form your rainbow. So roll, roll, roll. Do not get tired of this process. I'm taking you through so that you see the amount of time that I spend to get the desired result that I want. So I'm rolling still. You don't want one looking thin and the next color looking thicker than it. So you're going to try to ensure that you get the same level of thickness for all the bowls and all the colors, and it takes a pretty good amount of time. So I'm satisfied with that. Remember, I already applied my sugar glue initially, so I'm just going to touch up some little areas that I feel were not covered, and then we're good to go with the next color, which is orange. Oops, that was my shortening, so I had to take the glue and do it right. Okay, sorry that was off camera, but I'm sure that you've been following the process and you know just what is next. Apply the sugar glue right there, just in the middle, and then you're good to go with the next color. Knead, knead, knead. Get rid of the seams, get rid of any cracks, get rid of anything that's gonna stop you from getting the desired result that you want. And then you roll, roll, roll. I'm applying some more shortening on the table so that I can roll my bowl easily. If there's a spot or a stain or a speck, whatever it is in your fondant, pick it out. I like to pick mine out because I don't like to see spots. They can make my work look less beautiful, less perfect than I want. So I'm just going to pick that out and then go ahead with rolling. So I'm going to roll, 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 roll. And don't forget that there's a desired level of thickness that we want that is going to be uniform to some extent with the others that we have. So roll with your smoother and ensure that you're there before you put it onto the color that you have before it. So I'm gonna roll it out. I really wasn't getting it with the smoother there, so I decided to use my hands a bit to still stretch it out before attaching it. That's the perfectionist in me. So I'm rolling to ensure that it is as almost the same size of thickness as the others that I have. That's why I kept on rolling it and stretching it out. So with that, I think I'm good to go. I would apply my sugar glue right in the middle with my brush before going on to the next color, which is color red. So I'm going to explain some things when we get to the color red. So you see, it is not as easy to knead as the other colors. I'm using more pressure. I am trying to work it, but it's not as easy as the other colors were. And what happened is this, like I mentioned earlier, it was on short notice that I had to make this rainbow, and in the process I added too much CMC. As at the time I was adding it, I really didn't know, but I just know that I was trying to get it dry. I added CMC to all the other colors as well, but for the red, just as it is with dark colors like red, black, some shades of blue and purple, it became soft when I added the color to it, and so I had to toughen it. I had to add the CMC so that it would help me hold it together and get it as dry as fast as possible. So I added CMC and added again. I don't know how many times I added, in little bits, but in the end it turned out that it was more than I needed, and so it's made my fondant hard. And not only that, it started to crack. So when you put so much of CMC into your fondant or in your fondant, it makes it go from hard to harder and makes it crack. So I was trying to work it, to troubleshoot, to see how to make it work, but it wasn't just working. You see how it snapped right there. And I put up this part so that you can see how to troubleshoot, the behind the scenes, what I did in the end, and what you can do if you find yourself in this kind of situation. So I'm adding water. I added shortening the first time. I'm adding water to it so that it can soften it and help me knead it, so that I can go ahead to roll my bowl. You see, it's taking me a lot of time, but in the end it just wasn't working. It was still hard. It wasn't as stretchy as it was supposed to. I added shortening to it, added shortening on my table. My hands are beginning to get red from the color. Added some more water to it, but the red said, nah, not today. So I just had to find another way out because it was just taking my time and I still had a cake to bake. So I tried my best, and after some time I just let it go, and I took a fresh batch of fondant, tinted in red again, and then started the entire process. So I'm rolling to see if it will work, and I think it did, but okay, so this is still the same batch of fondant, and I think this was when I had to get a fresh batch of fondant to just help me easily get my red bow done and done with this rainbow as well. So I'm applying my glue. I tinted afresh, like I said, and in the process I wanted it to get as dark as it was before, so I took a bit from the old fondant and added to this one, and it sort of affected it a bit, but I was able to maneuver it. And go right ahead. So as I was rolling, I was beginning to see some cracks at some points. At some little points, but it was not something that I couldn't manage. So what I did was just to concentrate my efforts on one end of my sausage, which I intended to use for the rainbow. So I was seeing those cracks. I think at 2 points I saw them, but they weren't so much. But I just figured that I wasn't going to use that part of the bowl for the rainbow. If not, it would snap at the end of the day, and I didn't want that. So instead of starting all over again, because I spent so much time, I just concentrated on and told myself that I was going to use that end of the bowl. So that was what I did. If you can see, one side is longer than the other one because I wanted to avoid where I had the cracks. So I've added my red, and phew, finally So please take note that you don't add too much of CMC when you are doing this. If not, it's going to affect your fondant. So I'm at the point where I'm cutting off the excess part of the bowls. I'm cutting it out, keeping them aside. I'm going to do the same to the other parts. Cut off the excess as well. A pizza cutter can also work for this. It can also work for this, but I'm using a craft knife, and then I am going to stick some short picks into it. We call it toothpick over here. So I'm just going to dip them into water or sugar glue, whichever works for you. You can use, and I'm going to stick them into the fondant so that it will enable me place them on my cake. It's going to serve as some sort of stand when I'm putting it on my cake. So I'm going to do the same for all the ends of the bowl, so it will just help me stand my fondant on the cake. It takes a lot of time to get this done, but in the end, it's beautiful to behold. So I'm just going to go right ahead and finish up with that, and then give it some time to dry, preferably in a cold, very cold environment. I just left it in a cool part of my studio. I try not to put it in a hot cupboard because I find out that it fades some of the colors, like pink and the lilac. So I don't put this in a hot cupboard. I just put it where it is cold and allow it to dry. So we're almost done with this. And I'm going to be showing you how I used it on a cake, but that would be in another video. So we're done with that, and we're just going to keep it aside to dry. I'm going to show you what my rainbow looks like so you can have a closer view. So this is what it looks like. Wow, that's beautiful. It is beautiful. So I'm just going to keep it to dry one more time. That is it. Okay, so I'll be looking forward to seeing your beautiful rainbows. Feel free to tag me when you make them on Instagram, on Facebook. Feel free to tag me at I Bake Cake Signatures.